Hey guys, Uncommon Ramen here. Last Tuesday, I went over the effects in MetaZoo, so this Tuesday, we're going to look at the traits. And the traits video should be a little bit shorter, because I don't think they really need to go into great detail about them, but there's some that I really want to touch on, specifically because I don't think they actually work, and I'll explain that when I get to them. But we're just going to go down the list, essentially. These are some of the cards that I picked out that have these abilities, but let's just look at the list, which you will find on page 30 in the rule book. It shows you right here all the different symbols and what they mean. So you can see that right there. Some of these we've already gone over, like trap obviously is something that we went through, but we'll go over a brief description again. But let's just take a look at it from top to bottom, right? So right here at the very top we have a trait called Bloodsucker, and my example of that is Chupacabra. So you'll always find the traits right here on the left-hand side, in the upper part of the left hand. You can't see it on this card as well, but there is a divider here. Below that divider is always going to be fourth wall modifiers. Everything above that is going to be your traits. And this little Chupacabra has the trap trait and the Bloodsucker trait. To go over the trap trait, essentially you get to play it face down for free in front of you. Or under a beastie that you own. And at any point in time, when it is triggered, you may flip it face up, pay its cost, and then it becomes the current defender, or it does its trap effect. But we're not talking about that today. We're talking about the Bloodsucker trait, which is basically lifelink from Magic with some minor differences. The big difference here is that when it deals damage, it's going to gain the life points. So it's going to deal 20 damage and it's going to heal 20 life points. That is what Bloodsucker is. Now, it doesn't mention anything here about the player ever benefiting from Bloodsucker, but you know, maybe there's some here. Let's see. Recover. So this one helps the caster, but it's kind of in its own text box. All right, next on the list, we're gonna go into Burrow, and Burrow is a very strange one. Burrow, it says once per turn, but it does not say once per your turn, and I can see that being something that you can use on your opponent's turn, and in fact being more useful on your opponent's turn. So really quickly, Burrow is this symbol right here that looks like a drill or something to that effect. And it's basically once per turn you can burrow it, and you can burrow it until end of turn specifically. And beasties cannot attack it unless they are burrowed. And spells, abilities, and effects, unless they specifically say they can target burrowed beasties, cannot affect it. Like I said, that's until end of turn. So doing it on your turn doesn't make a whole lot of sense because there isn't a lot of spells that can be played out of turn. There are some, but there isn't a lot. But being able to do this on your opponent's turn to kind of save your beastie from, I don't know, getting attacked or even being targeted by a spell is a pretty cool idea. So Burrow, that's pretty simple. Once per turn you can declare it, and it ends at the end of turn. I'm going to go over that wall symbol really quickly. That right there is Defender. Any beastie or artifact that has Defender effectively doubles its life points during your opponent's turn. So this is going to have 240 life points during my opponent's turn. However, I kind of find that to be convoluted and pointless because if you do 120 damage to it and then it becomes your opponent's turn, it's going to revert back to 120 life points and die. So really the 240 life points doesn't make sense. Or even doubling the life points during your opponent's turn doesn't make sense because during your turn it's going to revert back, and if it had enough damage on it when it had the life points that it has when it reverts back, it's going to die either way. So really I don't see any value to Defender. It doesn't make any sense. I think it's superfluous, and I might be wrong about that, but it does say here, a beastie or artifact with a Defender trait doubles its maximum life points during an opponent's caster's turn. Okay, which means it goes back to normal on your turn. And if it has 120 life points like this, and you did 120 life points to it during your turn, even though it has 240 during your turn, when you end your turn, it dies. Let me know in the comments below if you think I'm wrong on that. I don't particularly know. I could be wrong. All right, we're going to come up on... That was one of the ones that I wanted to point out as being kind of weird and pointless. So the next symbol we're going to look at is this one right here, the spiral. That is convert. And essentially, convert turns these guys into mana dorks. And if you don't know that term, it's a magic term referring to creatures that can tap for mana. Essentially, convert means that you can fatigue this card to create an aura of the type it already is. So this would create a forest aura. If it was on a fire card, it would create a fire aura, so on and so forth. It just basically means that you can fatigue it for aura. Below that, we are going to have Venomous. So Venomous is pretty simple. If this guy is ever declared as a defender, he's going to cause poison. And if you remember correctly, you can have 3 stacks of poison. He is going to apply 1 stack of poison when he is declared a defender. And you can see it's just a vial with a sad face on it. So that is Venomous. I want to go over this guy really quickly. I only found a couple cards with this symbol. And you can see it actually right here in his text box as well. It's invisibility. And we're going to go into invisibility and why it it's not okay. So basically, invisibility basically says that you cannot declare defenders against a beastie who is invisible, and a beastie who is invisible cannot be attacked. Okay, so you cannot declare attacks against it, and you cannot declare defenders against it, making it pretty much unblockable. Anytime you see that, that's what that refers to. The reason that I want to point that out is because they also have separate symbols for those. This guy right here, Spirit, says a beastie or artifact with this trait cannot be the target of attacks. Okay, so he can't be the target of attacks. And that is the beginning part of invisibility. You cannot be a target of attacks. And my naive self was like, there's no way these guys are going to put the spirit symbol on with the unblockable symbol, because if they did that, it would make no sense, because that basically makes the creature or the beastie invisible. And they could have just saved themselves some ink and taken both those symbols off and just put the invisible symbol on. But of course they did not do that. They did in fact give Walking Sam Spirit, which means that he cannot be the target of attacks, and unblockable, which means that he cannot be defended against, which is the same thing if you put those together as being invisible. But for all intents and purposes, Spirit means they cannot be attacked. Unblockable, which is a shield with the slashes through it, means that you cannot defend against them. And invisibility, which is the eye with the slash through it, means a combination of both of those. Cannot be attacked or defended against. Why they would put them on the same card without just putting the eye, I don't know. That's their prerogative. I'm not going to get into it. But that was one of the ones that I really wanted to point out too, where I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Next, we'll look at Flight. I have a couple examples of Flight here. Flight is just a wing. Flight is pretty simple. You cannot attack a beastie that has Flight unless the beastie that is attacking it also has Flight. So it makes sense, right? So that's Flight. Pretty simple. If you ain't got wings, you're not going to attack it. Next up, we're going to look at Fear. Fear is this little monster mouth thing. Now, in the effects video, I talked about an effect called Scared, and it was pretty simple. If you fatigue a monster who is scared, you flip a coin, and on a tails, it bounces back to your hand. Scared is very similar. If you play a beastie with Scared, You target a beastie on the table. I think it's beastie order artifact. Let me just double check. You may target a beastie. No, it's just beastie. You target a beastie on the table, and you flip a coin. And in this case, if you flip a heads, you bounce the beastie back to their hand. So a combination of being able to scare and have a bunch of these guys that have fear makes that deck relatively powerful. So like if you're running something that has these spirits and these night type guys, you have scared right there and then fear right there. That's going to be a lot of bouncing. You just have to remember heads and tails. So the reason that I didn't toss this guy away is because he had another symbol. Actually, this is the second guy who has channel. Okay, or not. Is it channel? Convert. So I wanted to go into Regen, because Regen is busted, and not busted in a good way. Regen is busted because they messed up. According to the rulebook, a beastie with this trait recovers X life points each turn until it reaches its maximum life points. But what is X? There is no number next to the plus symbol. In the text box, let's just look here. When your opponent contracts a spell, you may have Hoop Snake. Yeah, so that doesn't mention anything about Regen. Yeah, so this is effectively a trait that does not work. Regen is... I found a couple examples. These are the ones that I pulled out. They all just have the plus symbol with no number and no anywhere where it explains how much they regen for. It just says in the rulebook X recovers X life points each turn until it reaches maximum life points. So if you have these, they're pointless to run because they don't actually regen, because nowhere does it indicate what X is. And I mean, that means you'd have to agree with your opponent, hey, regen is 10, or regen is 20, or regen is 5. I don't know. But it doesn't say anywhere, so that mechanic is completely busted. Please, if you know more, leave some comments below on Regen. I would love to hear from everyone. Maybe you found a different source. The official rulebook is this guy right here, which explains Regen right here. A beastie with this trait recovers X life points each turn until it reaches maximum life points. And then I bet you if I go into the glossary, because this is a completely incomplete glossary, it won't even mention Regen. QRS. So here is P. There's no Q, there's no R. It just skips right to S. So Regen isn't in here. So there's your incomplete glossary. So Regen is effectively a useless effect. Trait, my bad. So then we're going to move into this guy right here, which is Stone Skin. Stone Skin's pretty badass, not going to lie. And I'm sorry for all of you that listen to me just say that wonderful word. A beastie with this trait reduces all damage that would be dealt to it outside of attack and defending to 0. So you can only ever deal damage to these guys when you're attacking or when it is defending. So any other cards that would do damage to it, it would just bring down to 0, which is incredible. And if this guy's regen trait was actually effective, that would make him a really powerful card. But unfortunately, like I said, I can't find anywhere that defines what X is for regen. So he is completely useless. I guess he's not. I mean, Stone Skin's still good. Looking right here, we have Magiproof. Magiproof. Fun story. If you look on their original website, I might be wrong. It might be their Kickstarter. But this symbol used to be hexproof. Magiproof is, for the record, hexproof. It means that they cannot be targeted by spells. Which basically means that you have to attack or it has to defend in order to really do anything to it. Which is great. So that is what Magiproof is, and that's what it looks like. This guy right here, he's got a bunch of different symbols, so we'll look at him. He's got flight. I already went into that. That next one down there with the foot, that is fleet. Fleet is the equivalent to haste in Magic. It just means that when it comes into the arena, it does not come into the arena fatigued, it comes into the arena awakened. Next down is First Strike. First Strike means that during the attack, it gets the priority. Now, if you have two beasties that are attacking and both beasties, or I'm sorry, if you have a beastie that's attacking and the defending beastie also has First Strike, so both of them have First Strike, then instead of the First Strike being nullified completely, a coin toss is done to determine who gets priority. But essentially, First Strike means that this beastie has priority on attacks, which means it's going to deal its damage first. I pulled this guy out for trap, but I already went over trap, so you don't need to know that. And then here is the last of the symbols, not the last of the symbols, but the last of the symbols that I can show you on cards. The rest of them I'm just going to have to show you in the book. This is Immortality, or Immortal. If this one is ever brought to 0 life points for any reason at all, it will not die. It can only be removed from the arena through very specific effects, and in this case, the effects are right here in the text box. So if you have that up there, Immortal means that it'll do its own removing of itself for the most part. So we're going to go into a couple of symbols that I don't have examples for, and I'm not sure where they are, what cards they're on. I just don't have any. So one of those is Destroyer. Destroyer is, for all intents and purposes, Death Touch in this game. Essentially what it means is if the beastie deals damage, regardless of how much damage it deals or how much life points the beastie it attacked has, the beastie that was taking the damage is going to die regardless. End of story. The next one up here is Flash. Flash is a really cool ability, and I really wish I had something that had it. But essentially, when a beastie with Flash is contracted into the arena, you're going to flip a coin, and if it's a heads, target beastie of your choice cannot declare an attack until the end of the caster's next turn. So it kind of nullifies an attack on you for a turn, which is great. Next one up here is Infectious. Again, I don't have a card with this on it, and any card that does have Infectious on it is going to be broken. Because that is just a really crazy good ability. All this text here is going to confuse the crap out of you, so I'm just going to tell you straight up. If this beastie attacks and it manages to kill what it attacks, it is going to create a copy of itself. And it's a full copy, except that the token will be nameless. Everything else about it is 100% a copy of the beastie with Infectious, which can get super out of hand in this game. I have a video that I'll post about another beastie that is super out of hand with these little token copies. Let's just say the Infectious ability, if you have a beastie with it, think about making a deck with it, because that is a really powerful ability. And then the last one, no, that's it. I think that's it. We went over everything else. Invisible, Regen, Spirit, Stone Skin, Trap, Unblockable, and Venomous. That's it. You just make sure, yep, the rest of that's fourth wall effect stuff. So that is the traits. And as I mentioned, some of these don't make any sense. It is pointless to have Defender because, again, if it already took what would be lethal damage on your turn, when it becomes your turn, it's gonna die. Burrow, if it can be used on anybody's turn, is actually pretty good. If it can only be used on your turn, then it's kind of terrible. Fortunately, it says once per turn, so I'm assuming it can be used on anybody's turn. Regen is completely busted, cannot work, because there is no indicator as to what X is. MetaZoo, you need to fix that. What else is useless in here? I think that's it. Well, it's useless putting Spirit and Unblockable on the same beastie. You might as well just put Invisible. But aside from that, that's it. Please let me know in the comments below if you have anything to add to that, or maybe correct me. I'm basing all of this on the MetaZoo Rulebook 2020. It is the most recent text that I'm aware of that goes over these. And I'm sure that they're working on text to address some of these issues. I've got other issues inside actual cards as far as text is concerned, which I will also go into videos about as well. But for the most part, that's that. If you like the video, please go ahead and like and subscribe. And again, I like to hear from you guys, so I try to get back to you as soon as I can. And until next time, guys, peace.